Start with a firm, not too firm handshake. This can be really distracting for people interviewing if you have a really limp wrist. They don't like that. It says a lot about your personality, but also don't like trying to put them in a vice grip. So practice. I know it sounds really silly, but practice with someone you trust. Go up, say hey, good firm handshake. I know it seems silly, but don't smoke. I don't know if we have smokers, but just try not to smoke right before your interview, because again, it'll be distracting for the person that's conducting the interview. Okay, some real basic things. Convey a positive attitude. Show enthusiasm, willingness to learn. Convey that you can make a contribution. So again, make it easier for the interviewer, rather than saying, what are you going to do for me? They're like, probably nothing for me to tell you right now. What can you do for the district? What are you going to be able to provide them over the person standing in line right behind you? Demonstrate a spirit of cooperation. Convey that you are a team player. Energy level and eye contact are very important. Make sure that you can have a conversation with the person and look them in the eyes. It can be really distracting if you're trying to have a conversation with this person, but it's scary to look her in the eyes, so I'm looking back at the trophy case. And also be enthusiastic and be yourself. You don't want to seem over-energetic, but you also, it's kind of an art form a little bit. You don't want to seem over-enthusiastic, but you also don't want to seem like, this is really boring and you could be doing 10 other things right now. During your interview, listen carefully to the questions. If they ask you about your student teaching experience, talk about your student teaching experience. If they ask you about other activities you've had with children, talk about those. If you don't answer their question, they're going to be left kind of, how do I even evaluate that? Make it easy for them. Make sure you answer the question completely. If for some reason they have 2 or 3 parts to the question, make sure you make a mental note of part 1, part 2, part 3. Answer the question all the way. If they happen to ask you a question that catches you off guard, it's okay to say, let me just take a moment to think about that for just a second. Or, that's a great question. I'm just going to take a second to think about all of the experiences that I have real quickly. You're not going to want to say that for everything, but again, if it's something that they really, that's a great question, hold on. And then answer. But again, if it's something that kind of comes out of left field that you panic about, just say, that's a great question, just give me just a moment to think about that for a second. Again, not for every question, but you guys know what I mean. You all laughed at me, so yeah. Specific examples wherever possible. Don't be afraid of silence too. A lot of times candidates answer questions when they're waiting for that was such a great answer to that question, and they don't get that. So they kind of panic when the recruiter goes, it makes a note, and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't answer it right, they didn't say good job. So it's okay if there's a little bit of silence. Oftentimes they can't give you that type of reaction. They can't give you the yay or nay, that was a great answer. Welcome all questions with a smile. Again, if they ask you something that catches you off guard, don't go, oh my gosh, just, Yeah, and again, take your time to think about that. Okay, so we talked a little bit about some of those questions that you guys are going to be asked, and the way that you're going to want to respond is in a STAR method. So, tell me about a time when you had to work with a group of people on a project in which a conflict arose. So again, you're going to want to think about the situation or the task that you have an example of, the action that you took, and the result of the situation. So oftentimes, even we'll go through some practice examples, but you always need to go all the way through this process. They might not ask you for the results of the situation, but make sure you provide that. Does that make sense? So they might not say, tell me about a time when you had a difficult situation, and what did you do, and then what was the outcome? You might not get that, but they might ask you, what did you do? But you want to answer in a way that provides, here's what action I took in my group project, and here was what came out of it. So I had a really difficult team member, and we were working on a group project. We decided to have a team meeting and assign tasks, and then from there we all worked on our individual tasks, had a follow-up meeting, and were able to complete the project on time. Does that make sense? So go all the way through the whole process. Closing the interview. Summarize why you were qualified for the position. Again, make it easy for them. When they have teacher employment days, they are meeting with so many people. So when you can easily articulate why you're going to be great for the position and emphasize that again, it's going to make their job easier. So when they get back to their office, they're not going, I don't remember what Sally said because she only said it once real briefly and I didn't catch it. So again, make it really easy for them to remember who you are. State your strengths and qualities you may have forgotten to emphasize earlier, or tactfully restate them. And also tactfully say that you want the job. Find out what happens next. This is really important because a lot of times you guys will have a lot of interviews and then you don't remember, oh my gosh, should I call them? Did they call me? What did they say? Do I just wait at home and bright my fingers? So figure out what the next step is so that you can kind of alleviate a little bit of your anxiety as well. Make sure you have business cards or contact information of the person who interviewed you. It's really nice to have that interaction of, hi, I'm Kristen, they give you your name. Even if you take a chance or take a second to jot it down, that's perfectly appropriate. Thank the interviewers for their time, and again, give a firm handshake when you're done with your interview. After the interview, make notes. What was specific about that district, that teaching position, that particular city? What are some of their challenges? Make notes on that interview that you guys got the chance to have. Send thank you notes if you have that contact information. Handwritten notes are always appreciated. Emails are generally accepted. So if you guys have time and can send a handwritten note, awesome. If you only have their email address, it's going to be difficult to send a handwritten note. Go ahead and just send an email. Something is better than nothing. Don't just not send something because you guys are worried about not having their contact information. At least send an email. Follow-up calls. If you say that you're going to call, go ahead and call. If they say they're going to call, wait for them to call. Don't say, hey, you said you were going to call me last week and you didn't call yet. They're going to be like, yeah, I had 50 other things to do today too. So you don't want to be deterring them from that. Last minute tips, use job descriptions of the district. Peg gave us a great resource. Teachincolorado.org has really general position descriptions. So if you guys get a chance to check that out so you can see what's the difference between middle school, elementary, obviously you guys kind of know some of those things, but there might be really specific things within actual job descriptions that could be helpful for you guys as you prepare for interviews. Think about the question behind the question again. Be aware of grammar and posture. If you interview like this, that's really distracting. If you interview like this and you're stiff, distracting too. So again, think about your posture, think about your grammar. How quickly do you speak? I generally pick up my speed as I get nervous. I also like to say if I don't know the answer to a question. So think about some of those things. Use active voice and demonstrate enthusiasm. Stay positive. Know your resume and skills well. Be yourself. That's probably the biggest tip I can give for students that are practicing interviewing and getting prepared to go out and do interviews. Be who you are. Convey who you are and let that come out. Okay? You know yourself better than anybody else. You also want to make sure that you're a good fit for the district, so don't put on a face of, here's who I am today, because that's not going to be a good fit for you in the long run either. Real quick, these are some really general reasons why people might not get hired. Poor parents, overly aggressive, inability to communicate, no clear goals, lack of confidence, overemphasis on money, vague responses, lack of interest, lack of maturity, no genuine interest, limited eye contact. One of the things that's really important, no genuine interest in the district or understanding of the district. This one's going to be really applicable to you guys. As you go through teacher employment days, if for some reason this line over here has nobody standing there, so you're like, man, what the heck, I'll just go interview with you. What does your district do? What openings do you guys have? That doesn't say that you're interested. That's not very genuine. That might just happen to be, even if for some reason it's not a district you plan on interviewing with, be enthusiastic about it, be genuine. Don't waste their time either. If you have no intention on going to Pueblo to teach, you might not want to interview with Pueblo. Does that make sense? So be very genuine. Okay, so now we're going to take a little bit of time to go through some practice interviews.